Spending a night in the woods is supposed to be peaceful. Just a tent, a campfire, and the quiet sounds of nature. But sometimes the forest isn't as empty as it seems. Tonight I'm going to share 3 disturbing camping stories from people who thought they were completely alone in the wilderness until something strange started happening. And even now, they still don't know what was really out there with them. I want to start by saying I am not the type of person who scares easily. I grew up in rural Minnesota, spent summers fishing with my dad, learned how to read a trail map before I was 12. The woods were never something I feared. They were familiar, comfortable, even. That changed after what happened at the Superior National Forest 2 years ago. It was late August. My friend Darren and I had been planning a 4-day backpacking trip for most of that summer. Nothing crazy. We weren't trying to summit anything or push deep into real back country. Just load up the packs, hit a decent trail, find a couple of good spots near the water, decompress from work. We were both in our early 30s. Both needed it. We parked at the trailhead around noon on a Friday. The lot was almost empty. One other truck, a faded green Chevy with an empty roof rack, had been sitting there since we arrived. We didn't think much of it. Hikers leave their rigs for days at a time. That's just how it works up there. The first day was perfect. We made about 8 miles, found a flat site about 40 yards off the trail, near a narrow lake that barely showed up on our map. We got the tent set up while it was still light, ate well, had a fire going by dusk. The sky out there gets dark in a way that's hard to describe unless you've been far enough from a city. It's not just dark, it's total. The first night, nothing unusual. Loons calling on the water, wind in the birch trees. I slept hard. Second day, we hiked another 6 miles in, looped around, came back to the same site. It felt like a base, comfortable. By that second evening, we were loose and easy, trading stories, watching the fire die down. That's when Darren said he thought he saw something across the lake. Not a bear. He was clear about that. He said it looked like a person standing at the tree line on the far bank. Just standing, not moving. The light was gone by then, and we only had the embers and a dim lantern between us. He couldn't be sure. I looked and I didn't see anything. I told him it was probably a deer. He nodded and let it go. But that night I woke up around 2 in the morning and I lay in my sleeping bag just listening. There was a sound I couldn't place at first, a low, intermittent sound, almost like someone exhaling slowly through their nose, rhythmic. It stopped before I could make sense of it, and then there was nothing but wind. I told myself it was an animal, maybe a deer standing close to the tent, breathing. I've heard stranger things. Third day. We went out early, covered a few miles, came back by early afternoon. We were both a little quieter than the day before. I think we both felt something had shifted, though neither of us named it. When we got back to camp, something was moved. Not dramatically. Not like a bear had torn through the place. My pack, which I had leaned against the base of a birch tree, was now sitting about 5 feet from where I left it. Upright, I noticed, because I always leave my pack on its side when I'm not using it. It keeps moisture out. This one was standing, straight, like someone had picked it up and set it down carefully. Darren's pack was untouched, just mine. We checked everything. Nothing was taken, Nothing was damaged. I didn't say what I was thinking, neither did he. That night we kept the fire going much later than we should have. We didn't talk about the pack, talked about other things. But at some point the conversation just stopped, and we sat there listening. Footsteps. Not frantic, not running. Just slow, deliberate steps on the leaf litter on the far side of camp, maybe 30 feet out in the darkness. We both heard it at the same time. I saw Darren go still. The steps continued in a loose arc around us, unhurried, moving from our left, around behind the tents, and then fading to the right toward the water. We didn't move. We didn't speak. After maybe 2 or 3 minutes of silence, Darren said very quietly, "We should go." We broke camp in the dark, packed by headlamp. I have never broken camp that fast in my life, and we didn't speak again until we were moving on the trail, moving fast. We got back to the trailhead just before 4 in the morning. The lot was empty. The green Chevy was gone. I've gone over it 100 times. I've told myself it was a local who knew the area. A hunter, maybe. Someone who got too close to our camp without knowing it was there. Someone who picked up my pack to look at it and set it back down. But the steps, the deliberate, patient arc those steps made around our fire, that's the part I can't explain away. Whatever it wasn't confused about where we were. It knew exactly where we were, and it wasn't in any hurry. My husband and I had been talking about driving the Oregon coast for years. We finally did it the fall after our youngest left for college. Rented a camper van, loaded it up, and just went. No real schedule. We had 3 weeks and a loose route. It was supposed to be our reset trip, something to remind us of who we were before kids, before mortgages, before all of it. The first 2 weeks were incredible. We hit spots on the coast we'd only seen in photos. We parked the van in little pullouts above the ocean, cooked breakfast with the side door open, listened to the waves. For a while, it felt like exactly what we needed. The night things changed. We were about a mile off Route 18 in the Siaslaw National Forest. My husband, Ray, had spotted a forest road on a paper map, old logging roads barely maintained. He wanted to try dry camping for a night, away from the coast. I wasn't against it. I thought it sounded peaceful. We found a wide enough spot, pulled the van off the track, and set up for the night. No hookups, no amenities. Just trees and dark. It was cold that night. We ate inside the van, got into bed early, and I had just started to fall asleep when I heard it. Talking. It was faint, distant. 2 voices, maybe 3, low and indistinct. I sat up and looked at Ray, but he was already awake, listening. We lay there for a long time without moving. The voices continued, not getting closer, not fading. Just there, a constant low murmur out in the trees. Ray said it was probably other campers. That logging roads attract people who want the same privacy we did. He wasn't wrong. We talked ourselves back down and eventually slept. The next morning, everything looked the same. Trees, road, silence. I made coffee and stepped outside, and that's when I noticed the fire ring. It was about 20 yards off the van, slightly off the road into the trees. Old charred wood, gray ash, a few crushed beer cans that had clearly been there for a while. And around the fire ring, laid out in a loose circle, were about a dozen small white stones, smooth, river-rounded stones, each one placed carefully, not thrown. each one the same distance from the ring as the last. I showed Ray. He was quiet for a moment and then said it was just something some other campers had done. A bored teenager doing something weird. I didn't argue with him. But later that morning, when we were packing up to leave, I found one of those same white stones sitting on the front bumper of the van. Placed, not thrown. Sitting flat. We had been in the van all night. The windows had been fogged with condensation, closed. We hadn't heard anything. Ray said it must have been there before we parked. I nodded. We drove out the logging road and back onto the highway and didn't talk about it. But then 2 days later, at a campground outside Eugene, a real campground, with a check-in and numbered sites and other families, I walked back from the bathroom at around 10 at night, and there was a white stone sitting on the van's front bumper. Same size, same smooth round shape, same careful placement. I stood there in the dark of that campground with lights and other people nearby, and I felt something cold move through me that had nothing to do with the temperature. I didn't tell Ray. I picked the stone up and threw it into the bushes and went inside. We cut the trip short by 4 days. I told him I was just tired, that I missed home. He believed me. He still believes me. I never figured out what it meant. I've read things online about stone arrangements, territorial markers, warning signs, different things. None of the explanations felt right. What I keep coming back to is that it happened twice. Once in an isolated forest off a road no one should have known we'd taken, and once in a public campground 2 days and 100 miles later, which means someone knew where we were going before we got there, or something was simply keeping pace with us the whole time. I don't go camping anymore. Ray does. He's taken a couple of trips with his brothers since then. He always leaves a note on the kitchen table with where he's going and when he'll be back. I've never told him why I always check the front bumper in the photos he sends me. This happened to me when I was 24. I'm 31 now, and I've never told the full story to anyone except my sister. And even then I left pieces out. I was solo backpacking in Algonquin Provincial Park in Ontario, end of September. Shoulder season, the summer crowds were gone, the fall color was coming in. I had done solo trips before, nothing longer than 3 days. This was 5. I felt ready for it. Day 1 and 2 were unremarkable in the best way. Cold nights, spectacular days. I paddled a rented canoe into the interior, cached it at a designated pull-out point, and hiked in from there. The trails in the interior that time of year are quiet. I went a full day without seeing another person. On day 3, I found a campsite that wasn't on my map. I want to be precise here. Algonquin has numbered interior campsites. You're supposed to book them. I had mine mapped out. But off a portage trail, maybe 300 yards into the trees, I came across a site that had clearly been used recently. A fire pit with ash that wasn't fully cold. A log pulled up as a bench. And hanging from a low branch, a single white plastic bag tied neatly at the top. I don't know why I opened it. Curiosity. Looking for information about who was out here with me. I don't know. Inside was a child's sneaker. One. Just one. Size 6 or 7, white with a faded blue stripe, worn and dirty. Nothing else. I put it back. I tied the bag back the way it was. I walked back to the portage trail and I kept moving, and I told myself there was a reasonable explanation. A parent had lost it. Someone found it on a trail and bagged it to bring out. Something simple. That night at my campsite, I heard someone on the water. Not an animal, paddle strokes, slow and even. I unzipped my tent and looked out, and there was nothing visible. The lake was black and still. The moon was behind clouds, but I heard it clearly. A canoe moving toward the shore near my camp, and then stopping. And then nothing. No beaching sound, no footsteps. Just the paddle strokes, the approach, the silence. I lay in my tent until morning with my headlamp in one hand. Day 4, I packed up fast and stuck to the main portage routes. I told myself I was done with the interior sights, that I'd work my way back toward the put-in early and just rest at the trailhead. That afternoon, about a mile from the put-in, I passed a man coming the other way. Middle-aged, well-equipped, a dog on a leash. We stopped and talked for a moment the way you do on backcountry trails. He asked where I'd come from. I told him. He nodded. Then he said, carefully, that he was looking for someone. A woman who had gone into the interior alone about 10 days ago and hadn't come out. Friends had reported it. Searchers had been through the main routes, but hadn't covered everything yet. I asked if she had a child with her. He looked at me for a moment before he answered. He said he didn't know, that he didn't have many details, that he was just a volunteer helping to cover trails. I told him about the campsite. The bag, what was inside. I told him about the sounds on the water. He wrote the location down in a small notebook. He thanked me. He walked on. I kept moving, and I was out by late afternoon. I gave a full report to the park staff at the office near the main gate. They wrote everything down. They took my contact information. No one ever called me. I checked local news for weeks afterward. I found a brief item. A woman reported overdue from an interior trip, search ongoing. The article was about 3 weeks old when I found it. I never found a follow-up, never found a conclusion. I wrote to the park twice, got 4 responses both times. Nothing specific. I want to believe she was found. I want to believe the sneaker was nothing, that there's a mundane explanation that I just don't have access to. But I hear those paddle strokes sometimes. At night when it's quiet, slow and even and deliberate, stopping just before they reach the shore. Stopping and then going silent, like something that didn't want to be seen had realized it was close enough.